Can anybody guess what our topic is tonight? Mercury Dimes, yes. I love Mercury Dimes. I've collected them for many, many, many years. When I was younger, I was in junior high, and I had a paper route, and we had a coin store in our town, and every month you'd have to go around and collect from all your customers. I think I made like $40 a month. And I would take all my money and go down to the coin shop and sit for hours and sift through the coins, looking for what I wanted to buy. So I spent all my money at the coin shop. So quite a few of those were Mercury Dimes. So about 20 years ago, I kind of got into collecting again. Most of the ones I had were old, and I've upgraded a lot of them and gotten a lot newer ones and gotten more serious about it. So why would you want to collect Mercury Dimes? So I put a lot of things here. Number one is they're really fun. They have a great design. They have good relief in it. There's a lot to learn about it. They're small. A lot of people like big coins, which I do too, but they're tiny, so it's kind of fun to have little coins. They're historical. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of things you can learn. Right along with that is educational. There's a lot of things you can learn about the history of them, the things that were going on at the time, why are the things on it that are on it. There's a lot of varieties that we'll talk about. They're beautiful. They're relatively affordable if you collect them in lower grades, and I find they're very interesting. So, the history of the Mercury Dime. When Teddy Roosevelt became president, he hated all of our coins and wanted to revamp them all and have new coin designs. So all the coins were done, the Lincoln penny, all the gold coins, the quarter, the half dollar, everything. So the dime was one of the last ones, along with was the half dollar 1916 as well, or was it earlier? The Walking Liberty half. Yeah. Okay, so 3 of them then that year, because there was the quarter, the dime, and the half dollar. There was a law at the time which I believe is still in effect, that you cannot change a coin design until it's been in effect for 25 years, sorry. Which there was a special change made for that when Kennedy died, that they wanted to have a coin to honor him. So they have the Kennedy half dollar, and I believe it was less, was it 25 years? Less. Maybe it was. But I think they short-circuited that. So anyway, this is Adolph Weinman. He was the designer of the Mercury Dime as well as the Standing Liberty quarter. No, the half dollar. Got all my facts wrong. I only know about the dimes. He was a student of Augusta St. Gaudens, as were Laura Graydon Fraser and her husband, is it James? Yes, James Fraser. So all of the people that designed these coins were all kind of students of his. So this is, and when you look at the Buffalo nickel, there's a lot of people who said, oh, I was the model for the Buffalo nickel. And there's the Buffalo that was the Buffalo from the Buffalo nickel. So this was his neighbor, Elsie Stevens, and he actually made a bust of her. Oh, sorry, wrong page. 2 pages. So this is Elsie Stevens, who is the model for the Mercury Dime. And this was his neighbor, and he made this bust on the right of her before he made the coin. And you can see how it's very similar to the design on the coin. So that actually, all of the coins were a model of Lady Liberty. None of them they were all mostly Greek classic designs, not really like a realistic person. So this was actually a real person that modeled for this coin. So why is it called the Mercury Dime? So these are 2 pictures of the god Mercury, who's a man, and it's obviously a woman on the Mercury Dime. So it's not the god Mercury on the dime, even though we call it the Mercury Dime. It's supposed to be, it's the head dress is the pileus, is that what it's called, the cap, which is a symbol of freedom, and the wings are supposed to represent freedom of thought. So freedom and freedom of thought. But when it came out, there was a newspaper reporter that mistakenly thought, oh, it's the god Mercury, and published an article about the new Mercury Dime, and the name stuck. So now we're stuck with it. It's not there was some other name for it, I forget what it was, but it's not that, it's the Mercury Dime. So one of the things about Mercury Dimes is on the back, in the middle, there's these bands. And you can see on the top where there's clearly two bands. And since it's in the center and a high point on the coin, it didn't always strike up well, as with many coins. Like with the Standing Liberty quarters, you have the full head, and the Liberty Bell, with the full lines. And so there's all these things of, there's other ones, aren't there? Yeah, full steps, all that kind of stuff. So the thing on Mercury Dimes is full bands. Some of the dates are rare in full bands. Some of them, they were better at the mint. They were paying more attention, and they're not as much of a premium. So some of the years you can find full band coins for close to the same price, and some of them you cannot. They're much more expensive. So my collection, I'm trying to get everything full bands. Some of them are kind of prohibitive, so I don't have all full bands. These are all from my collection, but you can see the 1916 up here, how it's fully split, and the 23. This one up here is not a full band, and you can see how it's soft in the middle, not fully defined. And the bottom one has a little strike through it. So it may have been full bands, but it has a contact mark there which prevents it from being contiguous. So if it has any contact marks across there, it will not grade full bands. So the interesting thing about full bands is 1945. So if you get to 1934, after the Depression, they're producing dimes by the hundreds of millions. And you can find full band ones for pretty much the same price. They're coming along every year, cranking them out. There's full bands, some not. But there's enough coins being made that you can get a full band variation, a full band instance of almost every coin until we get to 1945 Philadelphia. This little chart here shows that Philadelphia minted 159 million Mercury Dimes. And out of those, in the PCGS survival numbers, they estimate that there's 400 survivors. And I think that's high. I've read other articles that say there's either like 2 to 4 rolls of 45 full band coins in existence, that they're extremely rare. So something was going on in the mint in 1945 in Philadelphia, like just crank the things out. We don't care what they look like or have any quality control on anything. So you can see the 45S has 5,000 estimated survival, and the 45D has 12,000 estimated survival. And this is a comparison of the prices. For the 45S, for an MS65, it shows a value of $55 and $80 for a full band, and then $45 and $65 for the regular and full band. So not a whole lot of difference. If you're going to buy a coin, you might as well buy the full band one. But the 45 Philadelphia one is $45 for an MS65 and $19,000 for a full band. So that's the one exception in the full band series.
You have about a dozen of those?
Oh yeah, I've got a dozen of them. It's half the supply in the world. No, I don't have one of those, which is frustrating because you look at that and you think, you made 159 million of them. Could you not have had a little more care and made a few full bands for the rest of it, for some of us to collect? So that's just an interesting thing with the full bands discussion. So this is RPMs, DDOs, die cracks, and all other kind of acronyms. RPMs is repunched mint marks. DDO is double die, DDOs and DDRs, double die obverses and reverses, die cracks, and other such things. I really like coins that have some character. So it's like every coin looks the same, but I like to find coins that have interesting stuff. I love die cracks. So die cracks and over mint marks, and I don't have any double dies, but the RPMs and the die cracks are pretty common, and they're kind of fun to find. So here on the left is a 39D, D over D, and then the right, that one you can see pretty easily is an S over S. See where that little mint mark is? And I think what happens when they do those is the mint marks were punched into the dies by hand. So Philadelphia would create all the dies, and they would ship them to the branch mints. So they have a guy at the branch mint, in San Francisco. He's got an S punch and takes all the dies and punches it with a hammer. Actually, they're not done by any machine or anything. And you can tell because if you look at different ones of the same date, the mint marks move around where they're positioned. So they're not, every die has the mint mark in a slightly different position because they're all hand punched. But it would take several hits. But think about hitting it and you slip or something and hit it once and then hit it again and you're not quite lined up. So I can see how that would happen. And there are quite a few mint marks, RPMs like that, repunched mint marks, that are kind of fun to look for. And they're pretty common too. So the next one is die cracks. So that doesn't show very well, does it? On the right one, well, actually on the left one, you can see the die crack running right down there along through the face. So a lot of them, some of them actually, I've got some where the crack goes all the way across the die. It's like, well, how's that holding together still? That it doesn't just break apart. Another place that they happen is along the one on the right is over right under the feathers, between the T and the feathers. You can see the die crack coming in there. Or sometimes they'll come in there and then join to another die crack and go different places. So that's one of the first things I look for on a Mercury dime is, does it have die cracks anywhere? So this one on the right, you can see pretty easily how it cuts through the entire coin there. And the one on the left is just above the T and along the lines. I think because the feathers are pretty sharp there, it probably creates stress on the die because it's so deep. And so they're pretty commonly will crack along that line. This one, there's a die crack up above the AME. You can see it coming down through the M and into the E there. Another fun thing is die polishing and clashing. They would, die clashing is when the two dies come together and hit each other, and you end up with an impression of the front on the back and the back on the front in the dies. And when that happens, they would take them out and polish them to try to get that out. And when they polish them, a lot of times you get all these lines. So you look at the coin, there'll be all these little raised lines in it, and that's from polishing of the die. And I don't know why, but it seems like Mercury dimes have a lot of that. And they also have a thing that David Lang calls die burn, where they polish real hard and it ends up getting a real flat spot. So you'll see spots like in front of the face or down here where it'll be real shiny. And that's because they what he calls burned the die, trying to polish it. Let's see, this one. So you can see in the nose here, right up here, so there's lines there, and up above here where it's kind of rough. That's from the die clash from the reverse die, and then some down here under the hair. And this one, you can see down at the very bottom, there's a lot of stuff in there, and then going out through the D, there's a whole big line. That's all from clashing from the obverse die. And this one has a die crack through the N on the left. So one of the really fun ones is the 1942 over 41, and there's a D and a P version of it. And it's interesting to know how this was created because the dates were put into the, what's the thing that presses the die? Is it a master die or the hub? I always forget what those things are called. Whatever they take to press the die, they put the date into that so that, they wouldn't, it used to be that they would make the die and then they would engrave the dates by hand or leave a digit clear. So if the date was put into the master die that's pressing the die, how did they get an overdate? So at the end of 1941, or in 42, when they started making 42 dies instead of 41s, it would take 2 pressings of a die to make a die. So you'd have to heat up the die steel, and then they take the master die and put it in a thing, and then they press it. And then they take it out, and they have to reheat the die and bring it back and press it again. So what happened here is they took the die, they heated it up, pressed a 1941 image onto it, And they went and heated it up and came back, and oh, now we've got a 1942. We're using the wrong one, and they pressed the 42 over it. So it was actually made from 2 pressings of 2 different year master dies. And you can see in the 4, it's not just the 2/1, but see the 4 at the bottom has a little notch, because the 4 in 1941 was not positioned the same as the 4 in 1942. So it's the 4 is actually offset as well. This is an AU50 coin, but if it's an uncirculated one, you can see a little bit of outline on the 1 and the 9 as well, from the doubling from the previous year. But it's kind of a cool thing. This dime, when I was collecting coins back in junior high, my dad bought a bag of coins from some woman in a church who needed to sell stuff and said, sure, I'll buy your coins. So he bought this whole big bag of coins. And of course, me being a coin collector, I'm sifting through them one day and putting all the dimes in little holders and stuff. And I found a 1942. I'm like, I wonder if that's a 1942 everyone. I should check. So I looked at it, and sure enough, it was. So this one I actually found in that bag of coins 50 years ago. And I had it graded, and it grades as an AU50 now. So next one is the micro S. On a lot of coins, there's different styles of mint marks. And even on some of the Mercury Dimes, there's a trumpet style and a regular style, which I have a hard time seeing what the difference is. But the micro S, I believe, was a mint mark that was used on, I don't remember what the other coin is, but it matches the mint mark that was used on some other coin. And they used them on some of the 1945 S coins. So they managed to get all the years right except 1945 when they're rushing to get all these coins out, and they accidentally used the wrong mint mark punch on the 1945. So this one you can see a big difference, how it's smaller, and it also, this one has, the micro S has the serifs on it, where this one has the rounded ends. So the micro S is a red book variety and is a pretty fun coin to find. So the big topic in Mercury Dimes is the 1916D. And I believe what happened is when they started making dimes in 1916, in Denver, in January, they made dimes, and then they stopped production because they needed quarters. So they made, 100,000 of them or something, or some small number compared to other dimes. So the 1916D became a rare coin. It's not super rare. If you see over here, the PCGS estimate that there's 10,000 survivors and 100 that are mint state. So it's not super rare, but it's very popular and has astronomical prices. So a good 4 will sell for, I think, $1,200, and then it goes up really fast to, a VFXF, you're in the 8,000, 12,000 range, and, in the higher than that. And they're not hard to find. You can go to any coin dealer online, and I can almost guarantee you they'll have at least 3 of them in their stock. And I think, well, why are there so many of them for sale if there's such a demand for them? Why are people not buying these 1916D dimes? They're expensive, my theory. But here's a listing, 2 listings. One on the left is a good 4, asking $13.50 for it. That's from David Lawrence. And then here's another one from the coin dealer in Oregon, West Coast Coins. They were at the PNNA show. I actually saw this coin. They had it in their case. It's an MS62 full band 1916D Mercury dime. Like, yeah, that's cool. But $24,995. So is it worth it? And is my collection complete without the 1916D? So when we had coin folders, you had this hole staring at you that said 1916D. It's like bothering you. There's a hole. I can't fill it. But if you certify your coins, then you don't have the hole, right? So do you really need the 1916D to say I have a complete collection? And I would argue that given a week, I could find a 1916D in almost any grade, whatever you want, whatever your price range is. And they're not hard to find. I mean, if you want one, good, fine VF, you can find one and buy it. Just go and pay for it. But if you want a 1926S, I would challenge you to go find one. Many times you cannot find one anywhere, a certified one. You can find them, that are raw, but to find higher grade 26S coin, very hard to find. Or 25S, 24S, all of those teens and 20 branch mint coins are very hard to find. So I think part of the challenge and fun of coin collecting is the hunt and the search. If I can just go buy something, where's the fun in that? So this is my personal rant. If you own a 1916D dime, I think that's amazing, and I'm so glad that you do. But for me, this is my argument that I don't need to have a 1916D. So there's my personal opinion part of that. My opinions are not the opinions of the Seattle Coin Club. So how do you find out about Mercury Dimes? There are two pretty good books. This one is the complete guide to Mercury Dimes. There are several by David Lang. There are several books that he did. This one was published by David Lawrence a while back. I've had it for a long time. It has a lot of information about the history of the dimes. It goes through each date, has prices that are pretty much old, but there's commentary about all the different dates and a lot of interesting things about each date to collect. So this is a really good reference. And this one is a fun reference too, by these guys named John Wexler and Kevin Flynn. They have a website called, there at the bottom, doubleddie.com. Every time I read it, it looks like Double Eddie to me. So I always read it as Double Eddie. They are into double dies, RPMs, all those acronyms. So this is a book that catalogs all of the ones that they know about. And they have, like the RPMs are WRPM for Wexler RPM, and all the DDOs. So every variety of a Mercury dime known is listed in this book. So he does, on his website, has all of this stuff too, so you don't have to get the book. But the book also has, in the beginning, some history of the dime, the Mercury dime, and some fun stuff in there. So that's a good book, good reference. He has stuff about all the other coins too, and pictures. There's a Franklin half RPM that he didn't have a picture of, and I found one and sent it into him, and he sent me a letter and said, yes, this is that number. And he included the picture of my coin on his site. So I forget which one it is, but one of my coins is shown on his site. And the back has pictures of RPMs and double dies and fun stuff. So anyway, this is a fun book too. So what about this guy? Have anybody seen one of these?
We gave one away.
Okay. So in 2016, the Mint made a 100-year anniversary edition of the dime, the quarter, and the half dollar. So I have one of these. This is not mine, but these are stock pictures. And one of the things I find most interesting about this coin is look at the bands. They made it flat. Like there's this whole big thing about a full band coin. So when they modeled the coin, they just said, we're going to get rid of the controversy and just make it flat. So that is the most interesting thing to me about this gold coin. So the other thing is, you were talking about fascism. This, what is this on the back of the coin? It's if you look at pictures of Mussolini, the official pictures in his, presenting and stuff, there's one of those on the wall in the back. So this was, and that's where the name fascism comes from. This is called a faces or fasces, or I don't know how to pronounce it. It's F-A-S-C-E-S. Do you know how to pronounce that? Not feces, fasces. Yes. It was a Roman symbol for strength and authority. And I think the bundled rods are like a symbol of punishment and like rule of law. And the axe is like a battle axe. So it's like a symbol of strength. And you have to remember this coin came out in 1916, during World War I. And I think it was a symbol to the world that we're going to be strong. And there's an olive branch in the back. So it's like strength and peace. But it is interesting that later on, the Nazis came along, fascism was named after this. That's where the name comes from, is from this symbol. So, any questions about the Mercury dime that I can answer? Yes?
I found it's called Winged Liberty Head.
Yes, Winged Liberty Head, which is what it was supposed to be called, not Mercury dime. So now you can say I collect winged Mercury dimes, or winged Liberty dimes. Yes.